Before the first sunrise, before the first second of the first day, there was darkness, and beneath the darkness, a deep without a shore. And over the face of those waters, something hovered, waiting. Then a voice spoke 4 words into the void, and the universe ignited. What you are about to hear is the complete story of Genesis, every chapter, from the first light to the last coffin in Egypt, told as the ancient Hebrew text actually tells it, where God is called Elohim and Yahweh, where the mystery is left unsolved, where nothing is softened and nothing is skipped. The creation, the fall, the flood, the tower. One family chosen to carry a promise, and the betrayals, the wrestling matches, and the impossible reunions that nearly broke it. This is Genesis, the way it was written. Let there be light. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. The earth was unformed and empty, a wilderness of water wrapped in night. And the spirit of Elohim hovered over the face of the deep like a storm about to break. Then the silence shattered. Let light be, and light was. It did not rise slowly like a dawn. It burst out of nothing, flooding the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. He divided the light from the darkness, naming the brightness day and the shadow night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. Again the voice moved over the waters. Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters. And the sky unrolled like a vast tent, separating the waters below from the waters stored in chambers above. Elohim called the expanse heavens. A high canopy stretched over a world that did not yet exist. Evening fell. Morning rose. The second day. On the third day, Elohim gathered the seas into their basins, and dry land shouldered its way up out of the deep. Naked ridges of stone and soil rising into the light for the first time. He called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters seas, and he saw that it was good. Then he spoke to the earth itself. Bring forth, and the ground obeyed. Green blades pierced the soil, herbs unfolded, each carrying seed within itself. Trees lifted their arms and bent under the weight of fruit, each after its own kind. The world turned green in a single command. Evening and morning braided together again. The third day. On the fourth day, Elohim set watchmen in the sky. Let luminaries be in the expanse of the heavens, for signs and for seasons, for days and years. The greater light was appointed to govern the day. The lesser light was appointed to keep the night. And the stars, the text says it almost in passing. He made the stars also, flinging them across the darkness like sparks from a forge, a clock of fire, inscribed on the sky, still keeping time to night. Evening flowed into morning, the fourth day. Then the waters came alive. Let the waters swarm with swarms of living souls. And the seas boiled with motion, great sea creatures, the leviathans of the deep, turning their hidden bulk through jeweled currents, and every gliding thing after its kind. Above them, wings beat against the blue for the first time, as birds crossed the face of the expanse. And Elohim blessed them, the first blessing ever spoken. Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the seas, fill the sky. Evening hushed. Morning answered. The fifth day. On the sixth day, the land itself was summoned. Let the earth bring forth living souls after their kind, cattle and creeping things, and the wild beasts of the field. And it was so. The world now moved and breathed and sounded, and Elohim saw that it was good. But then the rhythm changed. For everything else, Elohim had simply spoken. Now, a council sounded in the quiet, a deliberation, as if heaven itself paused. Let us make humanity in our image, according to our likeness. Let us, in our image. The text does not explain who is speaking with whom. It never does. It simply records the mystery and moves on. So Elohim created humanity in his image. In the image of Elohim he created it. Male and female he created them. Not formed from a command shouted at the dust, but crowned. Given dominion over fish and bird, over beast and field, over every creature that moves. And Elohim blessed them. Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over all I have made. He gave them every seed-bearing plant and every fruit tree for food. And to the animals he gave the green herbs, a table set for every breathing thing. Then Elohim looked at everything he had made, light and sea, wing and hoof, seed and soul, and behold, very good. Evening folded into morning, the sixth day. The heavens and the earth were finished, and all their armies of stars and creatures stood complete. And on the seventh day, Elohim ceased. He rested from all his work, and he blessed the seventh day and set it apart as holy, a day made sacred not by anything in it, but by the rest of God himself. Then the text draws closer. The wide-angle vision of 7 days narrows to a single garden, and the name of God changes. Now he is Yahweh Elohim, the personal name, the covenant name. No rain had yet fallen. No man tilled the ground, only a mist rose from the earth, watering the soil with secret streams. And Yahweh Elohim stooped down to the clay, the sculptor kneeling in his own creation, and formed the human from the dust of the ground. Then he leaned close and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the dust opened its eyes. The man became a living soul, standing upright in the breath of his maker. Yahweh Elohim planted a garden in Eden in the east, and placed the man inside it. Out of the ground he made every tree grow that is pleasing to the eye and good for food. And at the center of the garden stood 2 trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. A river flowed out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divided into 4 heads: Pishon, circling the gold-rich land of Havilah; Gihon, winding through Cush; Hiddekel, running east of Ashur; and the Euphrates in its broad course. Rivers you can still find on a map, flowing out of a garden you cannot. Yahweh Elohim set the man in the garden to serve it and to guard it. And he gave him one command, only one. From every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day you eat of it, dying you shall die. That is the actual Hebrew rhythm, dying, you shall die, a double word, a door left standing in paradise with a warning nailed to it. Then for the first time in the whole story, Elohim said that something was not good. It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper as his counterpart. Every beast of the field and bird of the heavens was brought before the man, and whatever he called each living soul, that was its name. Lion, eagle, ox, name after name after name, and at the end of them all, silence. For Adam no counterpart was found. So Yahweh Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall on the man, and while he slept, he took from his side and closed the flesh in its place. And from that very part of the man he built a woman. The Hebrew word is built, the way one builds a temple. And he brought her to the man, and the man, waking, spoke the first human poetry ever recorded. This, at last, is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for out of man she was taken. Therefore a man leaves his father and his mother and clings to his wife, and the two become one flesh. And the two of them stood in the light of Eden, naked, and felt no shame. They had everything. They lacked nothing. And they did not know that among the trees Yahweh Elohim had made, something subtle lay coiled in the branches, waiting, with a question. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field that Yahweh Elohim had made. And its voice, silken and slow, reached the woman with the most dangerous weapon in the universe: a doubt. Did Elohim really say you shall not eat from any tree of the garden? Notice what the serpent did. It did not deny God. It quoted him wrongly. It bent the command just enough to make the giver of every tree sound like the withholder of all of them. The woman answered, steady but already drawn in. From the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat, but of the fruit of the tree in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, you shall not eat it, nor touch it, lest you die. And then the serpent struck, the first flat contradiction of God ever spoken on the earth. You shall not surely die, for Elohim knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like Elohim, knowing good and evil. You will be like Elohim. The creature offering the image bearers the one thing they already had. The woman looked at the tree, and the tree looked good for food, a delight to the eyes, desirable to make one wise. She reached out her hand, she took, she ate, she gave to her husband, who was with her. Standing right there, the text says, silent, and he ate. And at once, the eyes of both of them were opened, but they did not become like God. They became afraid. They knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, humanity's first invention, a covering for shame. Then they heard a sound that had once meant joy. Yahweh Elohim walking in the garden in the wind of the day. And they hid among the trees. And the voice of God called out the first question in the Bible. Not an accusation, but a summons. Adam, where are you? I heard you in the garden, the man answered, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid. Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat? And the unraveling began. The man blamed the woman and, beneath the words, blamed God. The woman you gave me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. The woman blamed the serpent. The serpent deceived me, and I ate. Paradise had lasted 2 chapters. The excuses have lasted ever since. Then Yahweh Elohim turned to the serpent, and to the serpent alone he offered no questions, only a sentence. Because you have done this, cursed are you above all beasts, on your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. And then, hidden inside the curse, God spoke something no one in the garden could yet understand. The oldest prophecy in Scripture. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall crush your head, and you shall strike his heel. One seed of the woman, wounded in the striking, crushing the serpent's skull. The rest of the Bible, every covenant, every genealogy, every promise we are about to follow through this entire book grows out of that single sentence, spoken at the scene of the crime. To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. And to the man, because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree I commanded you not to eat, cursed is the ground because of you. In sorrow you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, until you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you shall return. And yet, watch what happens next. The man turned to his wife and named her Eve. Life, mother of all living, a name of hope, spoken under a death sentence. And Yahweh Elohim made garments of skin for the man and his wife, and clothed them. Something died in Eden that day, so that the guilty could be covered. It is the quietest verse in the chapter, and one of the loudest in the whole Bible. Then Yahweh Elohim said, Behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. Now, lest he stretch out his hand and take also from the tree of life, and eat and live forever. the sentence breaks off. And God drove the man out of the garden, eastward, and stationed cherubim, armed guardians of blazing holiness, and a flaming sword turning every way, to guard the path to the tree of life. Not to punish forever, to make sure no one would live forever broken. East of Eden. Life went on, harder now. The man knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, "I have acquired a man with Yahweh." Perhaps she wondered if this was the promised seed already. He was not. She bore his brother Abel. Abel became a keeper of flocks, Cain a worker of the ground. In the course of time, both brought offerings to Yahweh, Cain from the fruit of the soil, Abel from the firstborn of his flock, with their fat portions, the best of the best. And Yahweh looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look. And Cain burned with anger, and his face fell. Then Yahweh did something remarkable. He came to the angry man and reasoned with him. "Why are you angry? Why has your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be lifted up? But if you do not do well, sin is crouching at your door. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it." Sin, pictured as a predator flattened outside the tent flap, muscles coiled, the first warning in history, and the first warning ignored. Cain spoke to Abel his brother, and when they were in the field, Cain rose against his brother and struck him down. The blood of Abel soaked into the ground that Cain had spent his whole life working, and the voice came again. "Where is Abel your brother?" "I do not know," Cain answered. "Am I my brother's keeper?" A lie and a shrug over a grave. But Yahweh said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground." Cain was cursed from the soil, sentenced to wander, and when he cried out that his punishment was too great, that anyone who found him would kill him, Yahweh, astonishingly, protected the murderer. "Whoever kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold." He set a mark on Cain, and Cain went out from the presence of Yahweh and settled in the land of Nod, the land of wandering, east of Eden. There Cain built a city and named it for his son Enoch. His line grew clever and hard. From it came Jabal, father of tent dwellers and herdsmen. Jubal, father of all who play the harp and flute. Tubal-Cain, forger of bronze and iron. Civilization, music, metallurgy, and menace. For their father Lamech took 2 wives and composed the world's second poem, a song of vengeance. "I have slain a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. If Cain is avenged 7-fold, then Lamech 77-fold." From one murder to a boast of unlimited violence in 5 generations. The wound of Eden was not healing, it was spreading. But the story does not end in Nod. Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and called his name Seth. "For Elohim has appointed me another seed in place of Abel, whom Cain killed." Another seed, the promise of Eden, still alive, rerouted through a 3rd son. To Seth was born Enosh, and then, in the darkness, a flicker of light. At that time, men began to call on the name of Yahweh. Then the text slows into a drumbeat, the scroll of the generations of Adam. Listen to its rhythm, because the rhythm is the message. Adam lived 930 years, and he fathered sons and daughters, and then he died. Seth lived 912 years, and then he died. Enosh, 905 years, and he died. Kenan, 910, and he died. Mahalalel, 895, and he died. Jared, 962, and he died. Lifespans like mountain ranges, and every single one ending at the same cliff. Dying. You shall die. The sentence of Eden, tolling like a bell through 10 generations. And then the bell misses a beat. Enoch lived 65 years and fathered Methuselah, and after that, for 300 years. Enoch walked with Elohim. His years were only 365, the shortest on the list. But the scroll does not say that he died. It says he was not, for Elohim took him. One man, in the middle of the death march, simply walked with God until he walked straight out of the world. Death, it turns out, did not have the final word for those who walked with him. Enoch's son Methuselah lived 969 years, the longest life ever recorded, and then he died. His son Lamech lived 777 years, and he died. But before he died, Lamech fathered a son and gave him a name heavy with longing: Noah, comfort. This one, Lamech said, shall comfort us from our toil and the grief of our hands, because of the ground Yahweh has cursed. An entire weary world, naming its hope into a newborn. Noah lived 500 years and fathered 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And heaven looked down at the earth that was about to receive that child's generation, and what heaven saw would grieve God to his very heart and bring the waters back. Now humanity began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them. And here the text records one of the strangest passages in all of Scripture. The Benai Elohim, the sons of Elohim, looked on the daughters of men and saw that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, any they chose. And children were born of those unions, the mighty ones of old, the men of renown, whose names echoed through the legends of every ancient nation. Who were these sons of Elohim? The text does not stop to explain. It simply lets the shadow fall across the page, a boundary crossed, a corruption seeping into the bloodstream of the world, and moves on. But Yahweh's response tells us how serious it was. My spirit shall not strive with humanity forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. A countdown had begun. And Yahweh looked at the earth. The evil of man was great. Every intention of the thoughts of his heart only evil, all day, every day. Violence filled the world like water filling a vessel, and then comes a verse that should stop us cold. Yahweh regretted that he had made humanity on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. Not rage, grief, the Maker, standing over his ruined masterpiece, heartbroken. I will wipe out humanity, whom I created from the face of the ground, man and beast, creeping thing and bird of the heavens, for I regret that I have made them. And then, one small clause holds back the flood. But Noah found grace in the eyes of Yahweh. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generations. With Elohim he walked, the same phrase once used of Enoch. And Elohim said to him, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in it, and cover it inside and out with pitch. 300 cubits long, 50 wide, 30 high, a floating box the length of 1.5 football fields. Lower, second, and third decks, a door in its side. For behold, I myself am bringing the flood of waters on the earth, to destroy all flesh in which is the breath of life. Everything on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you. It is the first time that word appears in the Bible, covenant. And it appears in the middle of a death sentence, like an open door in a condemned building. You, your wife, your sons, their wives, 2 of every living thing, male and female, 7 pairs of every clean animal, food for all. And Noah did everything that Elohim commanded him. Then the word came. Come into the ark, you and all your household, for you I have seen righteous before me in this generation. In 7 days I will send rain on the earth, 40 days and 40 nights. 7 last days. And the animals came. The text says they came to him, drawn by a hand no one could see. Pair after pair after pair, through one door. Noah was 600 years old. His family entered, the animals entered, and then, In 5 of the most quietly devastating words in Genesis, Yahweh shut him in. Not Noah, Yahweh closed the door. On that day, the fountains of the great deep burst open, and the windows of the heavens were flung wide. This was not a rainstorm. The world was breaking from below and above at once, the ancient waters of chaos, held back since the second day of creation, released. Rain hammered the earth 40 days and 40 nights. The waters rose and lifted the ark high above the ground. They surged, they mastered, they swelled, until even the mountains under the whole heaven were covered, and the highest peaks lay 15 cubits deep. And all flesh that moved on the earth perished, bird and beast, creeping thing and humankind, everything with the breath of life in its nostrils. Only Noah remained, and those with him in the ark. One wooden box, rising and falling on an ocean with no shores, carrying the entire future of the world. And the waters prevailed for 150 days. Then another hinge of 5 words. And Elohim remembered Noah. Not that he had forgotten. In the Bible, when God remembers, God acts. He sent a wind over the earth, the same word as the Spirit that hovered over the deep in the beginning. As if creation were starting again. The fountains were sealed, the windows were shut, the waters receded, going and returning, until the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Weeks passed. Mountain peaks broke the surface like islands of a newborn world. Noah opened the window and sent out a raven, which went to and fro. He sent a dove. She found no resting place and returned. And he reached out his hand and took her, gently, back into the ark. 7 days later he sent her again. And at evening she returned with a freshly torn olive leaf in her beak. Life, somewhere out there, a tree was growing. 7 days more, and the dove did not come back at all. In the 601st year of Noah's life, the ground was dry. And Elohim spoke, "Go out of the ark, you, your wife, your sons, their wives, and every living thing, that they may swarm on the earth. Be fruitful and multiply." The first steps onto washed ground, and the first thing Noah built on the new earth was not a house, it was an altar. He offered from every clean animal, and Yahweh smelled the soothing aroma and said in his heart, "Never again will I curse the ground because of man, though the bent of his heart is evil from his youth. Never again will I strike down all life as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, they shall not cease." Notice the reason. Not because humanity had improved. The flood had not washed the heart. Grace, not merit, would hold back the waters from now on. Elohim blessed Noah and his sons, the Eden blessing, spoken again. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. Every moving thing was now given for food, but not flesh with its life blood, and for human blood. A reckoning. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of Elohim he made humanity. Even after the flood, every human life still carried the fingerprint of God. Then Elohim made his covenant with every living soul that had come out of the ark. Never again a flood to destroy the earth. And he set a sign in the sky. I set my bow in the cloud. A bow, the Hebrew word for a weapon of war, hung up in the heavens, unstrung, pointed away from the earth. When the bow appears in the cloud, I will look on it and remember the everlasting covenant. Every rainbow since is God, publicly reminding himself of a promise. But even righteous Noah carried the old wound out of the ark. He planted a vineyard, drank of its wine, and lay drunk and uncovered in his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness and told his brothers outside, made a spectacle of the man who had saved his life. But Shem and Japheth took a garment on their shoulders, walked backward, and covered their father without looking. When Noah awoke and learned what his youngest son had done, he spoke a curse that would shadow centuries. Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be to his brothers. Blessed be Yahweh, the Elohim of Shem, and may Elohim enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem. Noah lived 350 years after the flood, 950 in all. And then, like all his fathers before him, he died. From Noah's 3 sons, the nations spread. The coastland peoples from Japheth, the southern nations from Ham, and from Shem the line that this book will follow to its last page. But out of Ham's line, one name rises off the page: Nimrod, the first mighty man on the earth, a mighty hunter before Yahweh. A hunter, some ancient readers said, not of beasts, but of men. The beginning of his kingdom was Babylon, in the land of Shinar. Remember that name, because the whole earth still spoke one language, one set of words, and as people migrated east, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. "Come," they said, "let us make bricks and burn them hard," brick for stone, tar for mortar. "Come, let us build ourselves a city, and a tower with its top in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered over the face of the whole earth." A tower to heaven, a name for themselves, unity, technology, ambition, all of it aimed at exactly one target: independence from God. And then Genesis delivers its driest line of irony. The tower with its top in the heavens was so small that Yahweh came down to see it. Behold, they are one people with one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing they scheme will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, so they will not understand one another's speech. And in a single stroke, the project collapsed. Words turned to noise. Neighbor stared at neighbor, the building stopped, the people scattered over the face of all the earth, and the place was named Babel, confusion, the city that reached for heaven and grasped chaos. And there the primeval story ends. Humanity scattered, fragmented, curved in on itself. If the book stopped here, it would be a tragedy. But the scroll of Shem's generations begins to count. Arphaxad, Shelah, Eber, Peleg, Reu, Serug, Nahor, Terah, name after name, marching quietly out of Babel's rubble toward a city in the far south called Ur of the Chaldeans. And there the camera stops on one household, an old man named Terah, his son Abram, and Abram's wife Sarai, of whom the text says only one thing, and says it like a closed door. Sarai was barren. She had no child. Heaven's answer to Babel would not be another flood. It would be a voice, speaking to one childless man in the dark. And what that voice was about to promise him would sound utterly impossible. Then Yahweh spoke to Abram, out of the silence of centuries. Into the household of an aging man in Haran came a voice with a command and a promise. Go forth, from your land, from your kindred, from your father's house, to the land that I will show you, and I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. And in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Hear what was just said. At Babel, humanity tried to make a name for themselves, and was scattered into all the families of the earth. Now God tells one man, I will make your name great, and through you, all those scattered families will be blessed. The answer to Babel had begun. But look at who received it. A 75-year-old man with no map, no army, no son, and a barren wife. God promised a nation to a couple who could not have one child. And Abram went. That is the whole verse. So Abram went, as Yahweh had spoken. He took Sarai, his wife, Lot, his nephew, all their possessions and people, and entered the land of Canaan, a land already full of Canaanites. At the great oak of Shechem, Yahweh appeared to him. To your seed I will give this land. And Abram built an altar, then another near Bethel, where he called on the name of Yahweh. A man with no deed to a single field, planting altars like flags across a country God had promised to children he did not have. Then came the first test, and Abram stumbled. Famine drove him down to Egypt, and fear drove him lower. "Say you are my sister," he told Sarai, "so that they will not kill me because of you." Pharaoh's officials praised her beauty, and she was taken into Pharaoh's house, the mother of the promise, traded away for the father's safety. But Yahweh struck Pharaoh's household with plagues, and the truth broke open. "What is this you have done to me?" Pharaoh demanded, a pagan king lecturing the man of God about honesty. And Abram went back up to Canaan, wealthy, ashamed, and taught a lesson the whole book will keep teaching. The promise would survive even the failures of the man who carried it. Back in the land, blessing created its own problem. Abram and Lot had grown too rich to live side by side, and their herdsmen quarreled. Abram, the elder, had every right to choose first. Instead, he opened his hand. "Let there be no strife between us, for we are brothers. Is not the whole land before you? If you go left, I will go right." Lot lifted his eyes and saw the Jordan Valley, green and watered like the garden of Yahweh, and chose it for himself, pitching his tents toward a prosperous city called Sodom. The text adds, quietly, "Now the men of Sodom were wicked, great sinners against Yahweh." Lot chose with his eyes, and after he left, Yahweh spoke to the man who had chosen with his faith. "Lift up your eyes, north, south, east, west, all the land you see, I give to you and to your seed forever. Rise, walk through its length and breadth." The man who grasped nothing was given everything. Then war came to the valley. 4 kings of the east crushed 5 rebel cities, looted Sodom, and carried off Lot. When word reached Abram, the quiet shepherd revealed something unexpected: 318 trained men born in his own household. He pursued the armies of 4 kings all the way to Dan, divided his forces by night, struck, and chased them past Damascus, and brought back everything: the goods, the captives, and Lot. And as he returned, a figure stepped out of nowhere into the story: Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of El Elyon, God Most High. No genealogy, no introduction, a king and priest in one man, who brought out bread and wine and blessed Abram, and Abram gave him a tenth of everything. Then turned to the king of Sodom and refused to keep so much as a sandal strap, lest you say, "I made Abram rich." Melchizedek appears for 3 verses and vanishes from Genesis forever, but the Bible never forgot him. 1,000 years later, a psalm would promise a coming one who is a priest forever, after the order of Melchizedek. After these things, the word of Yahweh came to Abram in a vision. "Do not fear, Abram. I am your shield, your exceedingly great reward." And Abram finally said out loud the thing that had been aching underneath every promise. "My Lord Yahweh, what will you give me? I remain childless. A servant of my house will be my heir." And Yahweh took him outside under the desert night. "Look up at the heavens and count the stars, if you are able to count them. So shall your seed be." And then comes the verse on which whole libraries of theology stand. Abram believed Yahweh, and he reckoned it to him as righteousness. Not worked, not earned, believed and counted righteous. Then God did something staggering. Abram asked, "How shall I know?" And Yahweh answered with the most solemn ritual of the ancient world: animals cut in 2. The halves laid opposite each other, a corridor of blood between them. In that ceremony, both parties would walk between the pieces, saying in effect, "May this be done to me if I break my word." The sun set. Dread and great darkness fell on Abram, and Yahweh told him the future. 400 years of his descendants enslaved in a foreign land, then brought out with great possessions back to this ground. And then, in the deep night, a smoking furnace and a blazing torch passed between the pieces. God, and God alone, walked the corridor of blood. He put the entire weight of the covenant on himself. Abram was not even asked to walk. He was asked to watch. But 10 years passed, and Sarai's arms stayed empty. And so she did what people do when the promise runs late. She reached for a human solution. Yahweh has kept me from bearing. Go into my maid Hagar. Perhaps I shall be built up through her. Abram listened. Hagar conceived, and the household caught fire. Contempt, blame, harshness, until the pregnant Egyptian slave fled into the wilderness. And there, by a desert spring, the messenger of Yahweh found her, the discarded woman no one was looking for, and called her by name. Hagar, return, he said, and bear your son, and call him Ishmael. God hears, for Yahweh has heard your affliction. And Hagar gave God a name of her own, the only person in Scripture ever to do so. El Roi, the God who sees me. 13 more years of silence. Abram turned 99, and then Yahweh appeared again. I am El Shaddai. Walk before me and be blameless. The covenant was sealed into names and into flesh. Abram, exalted father, became Abraham, father of a multitude. Every male of his house would carry the covenant sign of circumcision in his body. And Sarai became Sarah, princess, for I will bless her, and she shall become nations. And Abraham fell on his face and laughed. Shall a child be born to a man 100 years old? Shall Sarah, at 90, give birth? Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. But God said, No. Sarah, your wife, will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. Laughter. God took the old man's incredulous laugh and made it the child's name. Soon after, in the heat of the day, 3 men stood before Abraham's tent at the oaks of Mamre. He ran, bowed, washed feet, set a feast, and then one of them said, At the appointed time I will return, and Sarah your wife shall have a son. Inside the tent, Sarah laughed to herself, worn out, and now this? And the question came back through the tent flap, from a guest who could hear thoughts. Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too difficult for Yahweh? Then the visit turned dark. The men rose and looked toward Sodom, and Yahweh said, Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? The outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very grave. And there, on the ridge above the valley, happened one of the most astonishing scenes in the Bible. A man haggling with God for mercy. Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous in the city. Shall not the judge of all the earth do justice? 50, 45, 40, 30, 20. Let not my Lord be angry, only this once more. Suppose 10 are found there. And Yahweh said, For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. 6 times God said yes. Heaven, it turns out, is easier to move toward mercy than we dare to believe. But 10 righteous could not be found. The 2 messengers came to Sodom at evening, and the city proved the outcry true that very night. Every quarter, young and old, surrounding Lot's house with violence on their lips, the messengers struck the mob blind, seized Lot, his wife, and his 2 daughters by the hand. For Yahweh was merciful, and dragged them out of the city. Escape for your life, do not look back. And as the sun rose, Yahweh rained fire and brimstone out of the heavens on Sodom and Gomorrah, overthrowing the cities, the valley, and everything that grew on the ground. But Lot's wife looked back and became a pillar of salt. Far away on the ridge, Abraham stood where he had bargained with God and watched the smoke of the land go up like the smoke of a furnace. Lot's story ends in a cave, in shame, his frightened daughters, believing the world had ended, making their father drunk to preserve his line. From those nights came Moab and Ammon, nations that would trouble Israel for 1,000 years. Choosing with the eyes had cost Lot everything. And then, after 25 years of waiting, the impossible simply happened. Yahweh visited Sarah as he had said. Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the appointed time. Abraham named him Isaac and circumcised him on the 8th day, and Sarah, 90 years old, cradling a newborn, spoke through tears and wonder, "Elohim has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me." The house of promise finally rang with a child's voice. It also broke. Sarah saw Ishmael mocking and demanded he and Hagar be cast out. It was grievous to Abraham, but God met the outcasts in the wilderness of Beersheba again, opened Hagar's eyes to a well when the water was gone, and swore to make Ishmael a great nation too. El Roi does not stop seeing. Then Genesis takes a breath after these things and delivers the sentence every reader dreads. Elohim tested Abraham. "Take your son, your only one, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as an ascent offering on a mountain I will show you." Every word a knife. Your son, your only one, whom you love, the son of the laughter, the son of the promise. And the text tells us nothing of that night, only that Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, split the wood himself, and walked 3 days with the command ringing in his skull. On the 3rd day he saw the place far off, and said to his servants words heavy with impossible faith. "Stay here. I and the boy will go yonder, and we will worship, and we will return to you. He laid the wood on Isaac's back, carried the fire and the knife in his own hands, and the two of them walked on together. Then the boy's voice, "My father!" "Here I am, my son. Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the offering?" And Abraham answered with the sentence the whole Bible leans on, "Elohim will see to the lamb, my son." And the two of them walked on together. He built the altar. He arranged the wood. He bound his son. He stretched out his hand and took the knife, and heaven tore open. "Abraham, Abraham, do not lay your hand on the boy. Now I know that you fear Elohim, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." And Abraham lifted his eyes, and behold, behind him, a ram caught by its horns in a thicket, a substitute, provided by God, dying in the place of the beloved son on that mountain. Abraham named the place Yahweh Yireh, Yahweh will provide. And it was said from that day, on the mount of Yahweh it shall be provided. 2,000 years later, on that same ridge of hills outside Jerusalem, those words would come true in a way Abraham could not have dreamed. And Yahweh swore by himself, "Because you have done this, I will surely bless you. Your seed shall be as the stars of heaven and the sand of the seashore, and in your seed all nations of the earth shall be blessed." Sarah lived 127 years, the only woman in Scripture whose full age is recorded, and died at Hebron. And Abraham, the man promised a whole country, came to weep over her, owning not 1 foot of it. So he bought his first and only piece of the promised land, the cave of Machpelah, purchased from Ephron the Hittite for 400 shekels of silver, weighed out before witnesses at the city gate. A grave. The first title deed of the promise was a tomb, because Abraham buried Sarah in the land, certain his children would one day inherit it. One task remained. Abraham made his eldest servant swear, not a Canaanite wife for Isaac, "Go to my kindred." At a well outside the city of Nahor, the servant prayed for a sign. "Let the girl who offers water to me, and to my camels also, be the one." And before he finished speaking, Rebekah came with her jar on her shoulder. Beautiful, quick and kind, who gave him drink and then drew water for 10 thirsty camels, jar after jar after jar. The servant watched in wondering silence, then bowed to the ground and worshipped. Her family heard the story and answered, "This matter comes from Yahweh." And Rebekah herself asked if she would go, said simply, "I will go." At evening, in a field in the Negev, Isaac lifted his eyes and saw the camels coming. Rebekah saw him and slipped down from her camel and veiled herself. He brought her into his mother Sarah's tent, and she became his wife, and he loved her, and Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Abraham died at 175, old and satisfied, and was gathered to his people. And at his grave in Machpelah, for one moment, the divided house stood together. Isaac and Ishmael his sons buried him, beside Sarah. The father of faith was gone. The promise now rested on one quiet man and his beautiful barren wife. And inside Rebekah's womb, when Yahweh finally answered Isaac's prayer, 2 nations were already at war. Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, and for 20 years her womb stayed closed. The son of the miracle could not have a son, so Isaac entreated Yahweh for his wife. And Yahweh was entreated, and Rebekah conceived. But the pregnancy was violent, the children struggled within her. And she went to inquire of Yahweh, and heaven answered a mother's question with a prophecy. 2 nations are in your womb, 2 peoples shall be divided from within you. One shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. The elder shall serve the younger, against every custom of the ancient world. God had already chosen, before either child had done anything at all. The twins were born fighting. The first came out red and covered with hair, and they called him Esau. The second came out gripping his brother's heel, and they called him Jacob, heel grabber, supplanter, the one who trips you from behind. It was not a compliment, it was a warning, and he would spend half his life earning it. The boys grew into opposites. Esau, a skilled hunter, a man of the open field, wild game on his shoulders. Jacob, a quiet man, dwelling among the tents. And the parents split down the middle. Isaac loved Esau because he loved the taste of the hunt. Rebekah loved Jacob. A family with 2 favorites is a family with a fault line. One day Esau came in from the field, famished, and found Jacob stirring a pot of red lentil stew. "Let me gulp down some of that red stuff. I'm dying." And Jacob, without missing a stir of the spoon, named his price. "First, sell me your birthright." The birthright, the double portion, the headship of the family, the carrying of Abraham's covenant. And Esau shrugged it away. "Look, I am about to die. What good is a birthright to me?" He swore the oath, ate, drank, rose, and walked out. The text closes the scene with a verdict cold as a tombstone. Thus Esau despised his birthright. One brother would do anything to get the promise. The other traded it for lunch. Famine came again, and Isaac relived his father's life almost beat for beat, Yahweh appearing to renew the oath sworn to Abraham. The same fearful "she is my sister" lie in Gerar. The same exposure, the same protection, but the blessing was undeniable. Isaac sowed and reaped 100-fold. His flocks swelled until the Philistines envied him and stopped up his father's wells. He dug them again. They quarreled over Essek. They quarreled over Sitnah. He moved and dug again, Rehoboth, wide spaces, room at last, until even Abimelech came to him admitting, "We have seen plainly that Yahweh is with you." The quiet son of promise, blessed in a land that kept pushing him away. Then Isaac grew old, and his eyes dimmed, and the fault line in the family finally tore open. He called Esau, "Hunt game. Make me the savory food I love, and I will bless you before I die." But Rebekah was listening at the tent wall. Rebekah, who had carried the prophecy, "The elder shall serve the younger," for 60 years, and apparently never trusted God to fulfill it without her help. She moved fast. 2 young goats, Isaac's favorite dish, Esau's garments on Jacob's back, goat skins on his smooth hands and neck. Jacob hesitated, not at the deceit, only at the risk of being caught and cursed. "Let your curse be on me, my son," she said. "Only obey." And so Jacob walked into his blind father's tent, carrying a meal and a lie. "Who are you, my son?" "I am Esau, your firstborn." "How did you find it so quickly?" And here Jacob reached bottom. "Because Yahweh, your Elohim, brought it to me." Using God's name to sell the fraud, Isaac touched him, troubled. "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau," he asked once more. "Are you really my son, Esau?" "I am." And the old man ate and kissed him, and smelled the field on Esau's garments, and poured out the irrevocable words, "May Elohim give you of the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth, abundance of grain and new wine. Let peoples serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers. Cursed be those who curse you, and blessed be those who bless you." Jacob had barely slipped out when Esau walked in with his dish. "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game." And Isaac began to tremble. The text says he trembled violently. "Who then was it that brought me game before you came? I ate it all, and I blessed him, and blessed he shall remain." And Esau, the rough hunter, broke. He cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, "Bless me also, O my father! Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" But the covenant blessing was gone, and what remained for Esau was a hard word, a home far from the fat of the land, a life by the sword, service to his brother, and, one day, a breaking of the yoke. Esau's grief curdled into a vow. "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." So Rebekah arranged the escape, dressed, of course, as something else. "Send Jacob to my brother Laban in Haran to find a proper wife." She told Jacob it would be a few days until your brother's fury turns away. She would never see her favorite son again. Everyone in this family had now paid. Isaac deceived in his blindness, Esau robbed and rage-blind, Rebekah losing the son she schemed for, and Jacob holding the blessing of heaven, fleeing into exile with a staff in his hand and nothing else. And it was there, at rock bottom, that heaven opened. Night caught Jacob at a nameless place. He put a stone under his head and slept on the ground. And he dreamed. A stairway set on the earth, its top reaching into the heavens, and the messengers of Elohim ascending and descending on it, heaven and earth, joined. And above it stood Yahweh himself. "I am Yahweh, the Elohim of Abraham your father and of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I give to you and to your seed. And in you and in your seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you." No rebuke, no conditions. Grace, poured out on a fugitive conman asleep in the dirt. Jacob woke trembling. "Surely Yahweh is in this place, and I did not know it. How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of Elohim, and this is the gate of heaven." He raised his stone pillow into a pillar, poured oil on it, and named the place Bethel, house of God. Then, being Jacob, he answered God's unconditional promise with a bargain. "If Elohim will be with me, and keep me, and feed me, and clothe me, and bring me home in peace, then Yahweh shall be my Elohim, and I will give a tenth." The deceiver was still negotiating. God would take 20 years to reach that. 20 years. And they began at a well in Haran, where Jacob saw Rachel coming with her father's sheep. rolled the great stone from the well's mouth single-handed, kissed her, and wept aloud. He loved her. He agreed to serve her father Laban 7 years for her hand. And they seemed to him but a few days because of his love for her. And then, on the wedding night, the master deceiver met his master. In the morning, behold, it was Leah. Jacob's own trick came back to him with the roles reversed. The older switched for the younger, in the dark, by a smooth-talking relative. "Why have you deceived me?" he demanded, and Laban's answer must have gone through him like a blade. "It is not done so in our place, to give the younger before the firstborn." Jacob got Rachel too, for 7 more years of service, and a household built on rivalry. 2 sisters, one loved, one unloved, competing for one man. But Yahweh saw that Leah was hated, and he opened her womb. And through the pain of that broken house, tribe by tribe, a nation was born. Leah bore Reuben. "Yahweh has seen my affliction. Surely now my husband will love me." Then Simeon, then Levi. "This time my husband will be attached to me." Then Judah. And with the 4th son, something in Leah changed. She stopped naming her sons after her husband's absence and said simply, "This time I will praise Yahweh." Remember Judah, Rachel, barren and desperate. "Give me children, or I die." Sent in her maid Bilhah, Dan and Naphtali. Leah countered with her maid Zilpah, Gad and Asher. Then Issachar, Zebulun, and a daughter, Dinah. And at last Elohim remembered Rachel and opened her womb, and she bore a son and called him Joseph. "May Yahweh add to me another son." 11 sons and a daughter, born into a contest, and out of it. The 12 tribes of Israel taking shape. Jacob's flocks grew the same way. Through 6 more years of wage games, Laban changing his wages 10 times. Jacob breeding the speckled and spotted until the strongest of the flock were his. When Laban's sons began to mutter and Laban's face turned cold, Yahweh spoke, "Return to the land of your fathers, and I will be with you." Jacob fled with wives, children, and herds. Laban chased him 7 days and caught him in Gilead. But Elohim came to Laban by night in a dream. "Take heed that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad." Accusations flew, including one about Laban's stolen household idols, which Jacob, unknowing, swore on the life of the thief. Rachel was sitting on them. And then 20 years of swallowed anger erupted from Jacob. 14 years for your daughters, 6 for your flocks, scorched by day, frozen by night. My wages changed 10 times. If the Elohim of my father had not been with me, you would have sent me away empty-handed. They heaped stones into a witness pile, swore a boundary treaty, Mizpah. May Yahweh watch between you and me, shared a meal, and parted forever. One enemy behind him, and the older, worse one ahead. Word came that Esau was coming to meet him, with 400 men. Jacob split his camp in 2, sent waves of gifts ahead, hundreds of goats, ewes, camels, cattle, and prayed the first fully humbled prayer of his life. "I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. With only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become 2 camps. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother." Then, in the night, he sent everyone across the ford of the Jabbok, wives, children, everything he had, until Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. All night, in the dark, at the border of the promised land, the grasper who had wrestled his brother, his father, his uncle, now locked with someone he could not out-scheme. When the man saw he did not prevail, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it from its socket. And still Jacob clung to him, gasping the truest sentence of his life. "I will not let you go unless you bless me." "What is your name?" the stranger asked. And Jacob had to say it. Jacob, heel grabber, deceiver, Confessing his name was confessing his life, and the answer came down like a verdict reversed. Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. For you have striven with Elohim and with men, and you have prevailed. Jacob named the place Peniel. I have seen Elohim face to face, and my life is preserved. And the sun rose upon him as he crossed over, limping. He would limp for the rest of his life. Some blessings walk with a wound. Then he lifted his eyes, and Esau was coming, 400 men behind him. Jacob went ahead of his family and bowed to the ground 7 times, and Esau ran to meet him, embraced him, fell on his neck, kissed him, and they wept. 20 years of murder vows and guilt dissolved in one embrace. I have enough, my brother, Esau said, refusing the gifts, and Jacob answered with words that carried Peniel inside them. Seeing your face is like seeing the face of Elohim, for you have received me kindly. The brothers parted in peace. Esau to Seir, where his line would grow into the sheikhs and kings of Edom, a brother nation standing at Israel's border for the rest of the Bible. Jacob, slowly, toward home. The last miles were the costliest. At Shechem, his daughter Dinah was seized and violated by the prince of the land. And Simeon and Levi answered with a deception of their own and a sword. Every male of the city slaughtered on the 3rd day of their circumcision covenant. The city plundered, and Jacob left a cry. You have made me a stench among the inhabitants of the land. Elohim called him back to Bethel, back to the beginning. The household buried its foreign gods under the oak, and at Bethel God confirmed it all again. The name Israel, the blessing of El Shaddai, nations and kings and the land. And then, on the road to Ephraim, Rachel, the love of his life, went into hard labor and out of it dying, naming her son with her last breath Benoni, son of my sorrow. And Jacob, the limping man who had learned something about how God turns names, renamed him Benjamin, son of my right hand. He buried her by the road to Ephraim, that is, Bethlehem, and set a pillar on her grave. 12 sons now. At Hebron, old Isaac breathed his last. And Esau and Jacob buried him together, as Isaac and Ishmael had once buried Abraham. Israel settled in the land of his father's sojournings, an old man scarred and blessed, with 12 sons around him. But of all those sons, he loved one above the rest, the firstborn of Rachel, the son of his old age. And the coat he gave that boy would become the most dangerous garment in the Bible. Jacob dwelt in the land of his father's sojournings, the land of Canaan, and among his 12 sons, one stood apart, Joseph, 17 years old, shepherding the flock with his brothers and bringing his father bad reports about them. Israel loved Joseph more than all his sons, because he was the son of his old age, the firstborn of Rachel. And he made his love visible, a richly ornamented tunic, worn in front of 10 older brothers who had never owned anything like it. The text does not soften what happened next. His brothers saw that their father loved him more than all of them, and they hated him, and could not speak a peaceful word to him. And then Joseph started dreaming. Listen to this dream, he told them. A boy with no idea, or perhaps too much idea, of what he was saying. We were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf rose and stood upright, and your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf. Their answer dripped acid. Will you indeed reign over us? And they hated him even more. Then a second dream, grander, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing down to him. Even his father rebuked him. Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you? But the text adds, quietly. His brothers envied him, and his father kept the matter in mind. One day Jacob sent Joseph, alone, wearing the tunic, to check on his brothers pasturing far away near Shechem. A stranger found him wandering in the fields and pointed him on to Dothan. And at Dothan, his brothers saw him coming from a long way off, that unmistakable coat against the horizon. And before he reached them, they conspired to kill him. "Here comes the dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits, and say a wild beast devoured him. And then we shall see what becomes of his dreams." Reuben, the firstborn, pulled them back from blood. "Shed no blood, throw him into this pit," intending to come back and rescue him. So when Joseph arrived, they stripped the tunic off him and threw him into an empty cistern. And then, the detail that damns them, they sat down to eat bread, with their brothers' screams rising out of the ground. While they ate, a caravan appeared on the trade road. Ishmaelites, camels loaded with spices, heading down to Egypt. And Judah, remember Judah, had an idea. "What profit is it if we kill our brother and cover his blood? Come, let us sell him. He is our brother, our own flesh." They hauled Joseph up out of the pit and sold him for 20 shekels of silver, the price of a slave, and the caravan carried him south, over the horizon, toward Egypt. Reuben returned to an empty pit and tore his clothes. So they slaughtered a goat, dipped the ornamented tunic in its blood, and sent it to their father. "This we have found. Do you recognize it?" Jacob recognized it. "My son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph is torn to pieces." He tore his garments, put sackcloth on his body, and mourned for days that became years, refusing all comfort. "I will go down to Sheol to my son, mourning." The old deceiver, who had once fooled his blind father with a slaughtered goat and his brother's garments, was now deceived by his own sons with a slaughtered goat and his son's garment. The scheme had come home. And here Genesis does something strange. At the story's most breathless moment, it walks away from Joseph and follows Judah. Judah, the brother who priced Joseph at 20 shekels, drifted from the family, married a Canaanite, raised sons so wicked that Yahweh put 2 of them to death, and wronged his widowed daughter-in-law Tamar, promising her his 3rd son and never delivering. So Tamar denied justice, veiled herself and sat by the road. Judah took her for a prostitute and left as pledge his seal, his cord, and his staff, his identity, handed away in the dark. 3 months later, told that Tamar was pregnant by harlotry, Judah thundered, "Bring her out and let her be burned." And as they brought her out, she sent his own seal, cord, and staff back to him. "By the man to whom these belong, I am with child. Recognize them, please." Recognize. The very word the brothers had used over the bloody tunic. And Judah broke, publicly, completely. "She is more righteous than I." Hold that moment. It is the first crack of conscience in the man who sold his brother, and from Tamar's twins, from Perez, would one day come David, and the kings of Judah, and, at the end of the whole story, the Messiah. God was writing straight lines with the crookedest timber in the family. Meanwhile, down in Egypt, a Hebrew slave was defying every expectation because Yahweh was with Joseph. The text repeats it like a heartbeat. In Potiphar's house, everything Joseph touched prospered, until the captain of Pharaoh's guard put his entire estate into the slave's hands. But Joseph was handsome in form and appearance, and Potiphar's wife fixed her eyes on him. "Lie with me." Day after day and day after day, Joseph refused, with a reason that reached far above the household. "My master has withheld nothing from me except you. Because you are his wife, how then could I do this great evil and sin against Elohim?" Until the day she caught him alone, seized his garment, and he tore free and fled, leaving the garment in her hand. For the second time, Joseph's clothing was used to tell a lie about him. Her accusation put him in the king's prison, and there the heartbeat resumes. But Yahweh was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love, until the warden had handed the whole prison over to him. Betrayed by brothers, sold, slandered, forgotten, and never once abandoned. In that prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker each dreamed a dream on the same night and woke troubled, for there was no interpreter. Joseph's answer set the course of his life. Do not interpretations belong to Elohim? Tell me. The cupbearer's vine with 3 branches in 3 days, restoration to Pharaoh's side. The baker's 3 baskets in 3 days, the gallows. And both came true to the letter. Joseph asked only one thing, remember me when it is well with you, mention me to Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. The cupbearer was restored, exactly as Joseph said, yet the cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. And the door of the prison stayed shut for 2 more full years. Then Pharaoh dreamed. He stood on the bank of the Nile, and 7 cows came up out of the river, sleek and fat, grazing in the reed grass. And after them 7 other cows, gaunt and ugly, such as he had never seen in all Egypt. And the gaunt cows devoured the fat ones and looked no better for it. He woke, he slept, he dreamed again. 7 plump ears of grain on 1 stalk, swallowed by 7 ears thin and scorched by the east wind. In the morning his spirit was in turmoil, and all the magicians and wise men of Egypt stood mute before the dreams. And then, at last, the cupbearer's memory returned. I remember my faults this day. And he told Pharaoh about a Hebrew young man in the prison who interpreted dreams that came true. They ran for Joseph. He shaved, changed his clothes, and stood before the most powerful man on earth. A slave, a prisoner, a foreigner. And when Pharaoh said, I have heard that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it, Joseph gave the answer of a man whom the pit and the prison had made unbreakably honest. It is not in me. Elohim will answer for the welfare of Pharaoh. The 2 dreams were one, he said. 7 years of great abundance are coming on all the land of Egypt, and after them 7 years of famine so heavy that the abundance will be forgotten. The doubling means the matter is fixed by Elohim, and he will hasten it. And then Joseph, unbidden, laid out the rescue plan. Let Pharaoh find a discerning and wise man, appoint overseers, store a 5th of the harvest of the 7 fat years in the cities, and hold it as a reserve for the famine, that the land may not perish. And Pharaoh looked around at his court and asked, Can we find a man like this, in whom is the spirit of Elohim? He turned to Joseph. Since Elohim has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and at your mouth all my people shall order themselves. Only in the throne will I be greater than you. The signet ring left Pharaoh's hand and slid onto Joseph's. Fine linen, the gold chain, the 2nd chariot, and heralds crying before it. A new name, Zaphanath-Paneah, and a wife, Asenath, at 30 years old, 13 years after his brothers threw him into a pit. Joseph rose in one morning from the dungeon to the right hand of the throne of Egypt. In the years of plenty he gathered grain like the sand of the sea, beyond measure until he stopped counting. 2 sons were born to him, and their names tell you what those years were doing inside him. Manasseh, Elohim has made me forget all my hardship. And Ephraim, Elohim has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. Then the 7 years of plenty ended, and the famine began over the face of the whole earth. And every land came to Egypt, to Joseph, to buy grain. Including, one day, 10 weathered shepherds from Canaan. Jacob had heard there was grain in Egypt. Why do you keep looking at one another? Go down and buy for us, that we may live and not die. But Benjamin, Rachel's last son, he kept home. And so 10 brothers came and bowed down before the governor of Egypt with their faces to the ground. And the sheaves of the dream, 20 years late, quietly bowed. Joseph recognized them instantly. They had no idea. Before them stood an Egyptian lord, shaved and robed and speaking through an interpreter. Not the 17-year-old they had stripped and sold. And Joseph spoke harshly, "You are spies. and began, test by test, to press upon their story until it cracked open at the exact wound. We were 12 brothers. The youngest is with our father, and one is no more. He bound Simeon before their eyes and demanded they bring the youngest brother down. And the brothers, thinking no one could understand them, said to one another words Joseph had waited 20 years to hear. Truly we are guilty concerning our brother. We saw the distress of his soul when he pleaded with us, and we would not listen. Therefore this distress has come upon us. And Joseph turned away from them and wept. He filled their sacks with grain, and secretly returned every man's silver into the mouth of his sack. Grace disguised as terror. When they found it, their hearts failed them. What is this that Elohim has done to us at home? Jacob refused to release Benjamin. You have bereaved me. Joseph is no more. Simeon is no more. And now you would take Benjamin? Everything is against me. Until the famine itself overruled him. And it was Judah who stepped forward. Judah, changed since Tamar. Send the lad with me. I will be surety for him. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back, let me bear the blame forever. The old man yielded, with balm and honey and double silver and a blessing. May El Shaddai grant you mercy before the man. And as for me, if I am bereaved, I am bereaved. In Egypt, the tests grew stranger. The feared governor brought them into his own house and seated them at table in the order of their birth, firstborn to youngest. And the men looked at one another in astonishment. He heaped Benjamin's portion 5 times higher. Watching, was the old poison still there, the envy of Rachel's favored son? Then the final trap. Sacks filled, silver returned again, and his own silver cup hidden in the sack of Benjamin. The steward overtook them on the road. The accusation fell. The brothers, certain of innocence, swore that the guilty one should die. And sack by sack, eldest to youngest, the search moved down the line until the cup flashed out of Benjamin's sack. They tore their garments. And here is the moment the whole story had been driving toward. They did not abandon Benjamin. Every one of them loaded his donkey and went back into the city, back into slavery's jaws, together. And Judah drew near to the throne. What follows is the longest speech in Genesis, a guilty man offering everything. He retold it all, the aged father, the son of his old age, the brother who is dead, the father's life bound up in the boy's life. Now therefore, please let your servant remain as a slave to my lord in place of the lad, and let the lad go up with his brothers. For how can I go up to my father if the lad is not with me? The man who sold one son of Rachel into slavery was now begging to become a slave himself to free the other. Substitution, the very heart of the Bible, spoken for the first time by the brother whose line would one day produce the true substitute. And Joseph could not restrain himself any longer. Send everyone out from me! And when he was alone with them, he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it through the walls, and Pharaoh's household heard of it. And then, in plain Hebrew, without an interpreter, the governor of Egypt said, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? His brothers could not answer a word. They stood paralyzed before him, the dreamer from the pit, alive, robed in power, holding their lives in his hand. Come near to me, he said, and they came near. I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be grieved or angry with yourselves that you sold me here. For Elohim sent me before you to preserve life. It was not you who sent me here, but Elohim. 22 years of betrayal gathered up in one sentence and handed back as providence. He fell on his brother Benjamin's neck and wept. And Benjamin wept on his neck. And he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. And after that, at last, his brothers talked with him. The wagons of Pharaoh rolled north to Canaan with news that stopped an old man's heart. Joseph is still alive, and he is ruler over all the land of Egypt. Jacob's heart went numb. He did not believe them until he saw the wagons. And the spirit of Jacob revived. And Israel said, Enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. At Beersheba, on the border, Elohim spoke to him in the visions of the night, "Jacob, Jacob, do not be afraid to go down to Egypt. For there I will make you a great nation. I myself will go down with you, and I myself will surely bring you up again." And so Israel went down, sons and grandsons, daughters and flocks, 70 souls in all, the whole covenant family in a caravan of Egyptian wagons. In Goshen, Joseph harnessed his chariot and rode to meet his father, and fell on his neck, and wept on his neck a long time. And Israel said, "Now let me die, since I have seen your face, and know that you are still alive." Pharaoh gave them the best of the land. Frail old Jacob stood before the God King of Egypt and blessed him. And through the famine years, Joseph's wisdom carried Egypt and the nations. While Israel dwelt in Goshen and was fruitful and multiplied greatly, Jacob lived 17 years in Egypt, the same number of years Joseph had lived at home before the pit. And when the time drew near for him to die, the blessings began to flow. He crossed his hands over Joseph's sons, right hand on Ephraim the younger, deliberately over Joseph's protest, the God of crossed hands choosing the younger one last time. Then he summoned all 12 sons around his bed and spoke over each his destiny. Reuben, unstable as water, would not excel. Simeon and Levi, scattered for their violence, and then Judah, whom his brothers would praise, the lion's cub whom none dares rouse. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he comes to whom it belongs, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. A king, hidden in a deathbed blessing, still centuries down the road. Zebulun by the sea, Issachar the strong bearer, Dan the judge, and a sudden cry out of the old man's depths. For your salvation, O Yahweh, I wait. Gad, Asher, Naphtali, and Joseph, the fruitful bough by the spring, his bough abiding in strength by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. Blessed with blessings of heaven above and the deep beneath, Benjamin, the ravenous wolf. 12 words for 12 tribes, the whole future nation, spoken into being by a dying man. Then Jacob commanded them, "Bury me with my fathers, in the cave of Machpelah, with Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah and Leah." And he drew his feet up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. Egypt wept for him 70 days. And a procession such as Canaan had never seen, chariots and horsemen. The elders of Egypt and the sons of Israel carried Jacob home and laid him in the cave with his fathers. And then, with the father gone, the old fear crawled back out of the brothers' guilt. What if Joseph holds a grudge? They sent messengers pleading forgiveness, and came and fell before him. "Behold, we are your servants." And Joseph wept, and gave them the sentence that gathers up the entire book of Genesis in one line. "Do not fear. Am I in the place of Elohim? You meant evil against me, but Elohim meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive, as they are today. So do not fear. I will provide for you and your little ones." And he comforted them, and spoke kindly to them. Joseph lived 110 years, and saw his great-grandchildren on his knees. And when his time came, he spoke to his brothers, not about Egypt, where he had a palace, but about a promise. "I am dying, but Elohim will surely visit you, and bring you up out of this land to the land he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob." And he made the sons of Israel swear an oath, "When Elohim visits you, you shall carry my bones up from here." So Joseph died, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. And that is the last word of the book. In Egypt. Genesis opens with God breathing life into man, and closes with a coffin in a foreign land, but a coffin with an oath attached. A dead man's bones waiting on a living God's promise. The family is 70 souls in Goshen. The land is promised but not possessed. The seed of the woman has not yet crushed the serpent. Everything is unfinished, and everything is certain. Because 400 years later, a deliverer will stand before another Pharaoh, and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob will visit his people with a mighty hand. And when Israel finally marches out of Egypt through a split sea, they will be carrying Joseph's bones. If this journey through Genesis moved you, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear these stories the way they were actually written. And come back for the next chapter, Exodus, the burning bush, the 10 plagues, and the night the sea stood up like walls. The story is just beginning. See you there.